Hey guys, Elon Musk just tweeted out that X is the number one news app in Germany. I think this is great news. X is a much more free speech platform than YouTube or any of the other major platforms. Even now, Facebook says they're making reforms to be more like X, and that's good in terms of getting rid of censors, but it's still, in my opinion, much more censorious than X. I would say out of the major platforms, X censors the least out of any platform, which is great news because X, unlike YouTube and Facebook, is used very heavily by the media and is used in the creation of trending stories. That means that it's a lot harder for journalists to suppress the news because so many independent content creators and just other people who are interested in the news can constantly see whatever topic is organically trending on X. X also puts pressure on YouTube, Facebook, and other sites to reduce censorship. One of the big reasons, other than I think Trump's victory, why you were seeing a resurgence of free speech is that with X allowing free speech, if the other platforms don't let up on the censorship, then people will gravitate towards X and away from YouTube, Facebook, and the other major social media platforms like TikTok and etc. By X allowing free speech, it actually puts a lot of pressure on these other platforms to actually compete instead of just working as a cartel to limit free speech. Germany is one of the most authoritarian countries in Europe in terms of its crackdown on free speech. I remember they did a, I believe, 60-minute special where you had literally prosecutors were giddy at the idea of not breaking down people's doors, doing these morning raids, and they had all these, dozens of different divisions doing raids all the time, all over Germany, confiscating devices. And I remember the woman in the interview, giddy as she described the man's shock at realizing that he said, well, I thought we had free speech in Germany. And she was giddily recounting the story as she confiscated his devices and arrested him. And I just thought that is such a disgusting Orwellian event that is happening in Germany. And it's not, and I know the Germans are trying to say that, well, Germany has to fight against Nazism and, fascism and all this stuff. But, even the lead up to Hitler taking power in Germany, he was very heavily censored. He wasn't allowed to speak in public. Hundreds of Nazi newspapers were shut down. It's not like censorship was effective then to stop the rise of Hitler. I don't think it would be effective now, and I don't think there is going to be another rise of Hitler in Germany to begin with. So the whole thing is nonsense. But I would say the actual threat in my mind is the censors taking away legitimate free speech and reducing the ability of people to settle their differences through nonviolence. If you really censor a political movement and you can't develop good counter arguments to it, you're going to be in a big problem because either the movement is going to turn violent in a way to fight against a system they believe cannot be challenged using legitimate nonviolent means like speech because they're being censored, arrested, and jailed, or the movement is going to continue to grow in the shadows through word of mouth and generally the way political movements grow. I mean, obviously social media is a recent idea, a recent phenomenon. It's not like, the Nazis or the Bolsheviks needed social media to grow. You can grow a movement just through word of mouth. Even before newspapers, you had social movements that would overthrow various, kings and lords, and people talk to each other. You need to develop good sets of arguments to combat bad ideas, not embrace censorship. And I think X, with this community node system that allows organic comments on perhaps controversial takes, and allows people to, for the most part, freely express their ideas. I think that is the future, and it's the best system going forward. Now, I understand that X has to abide by the law, and they do, as we saw, take down lots of posts in Turkey, because when they arrested one of the key opposition leaders and the Turkish government, Erdogan, was cracking down on free speech there, they did eventually comply with censorship in Brazil, and they do comply with censorship in Germany. But even that compliance allows a lot of speech to be said before the censors get to it. You can use VPNs to bypass a lot of the geo-locked censorship that occurs in Germany. Someone could use a VPN to access the information by, funneling through America. And I think it's still preferable to have nothing at all. And one of the ways I think you kind of know that's true is you see a very heavy crackdown and alarm in Europe and a lot of these authoritarian countries about social media. I think it's clear to me that Germany and a lot of these other countries would like to just be able to totally block X completely if it was politically viable. One of the large effects of the rise of social media, in my mind, has been that you have a lot more citizen journalists, and the mainstream media, or the legacy media, as I like to call them, has declined pretty much everywhere in trust and in, I would say, honesty. And I think a lot of that is because it is so much easier now to expose the lies of the media, the government, in real time, more so than it has ever been. Because even if hardly anyone is willing to say Joe Biden has lost his mental acuity, or this politician is corrupt, someone will say it. And if it's true, it'll catch on. Let me know what you guys think about X being the number one news app in Germany. What do you think this means for kind of the future of censorship? Do you think it's a good thing? And what do you think Germany is going to do politically about X being the number one app? Because I'm sure they're scheming to increase censorship laws and figure out ways to ban or increase the cost of users who use the app. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below.